Today on Cryptic Mass Guitar, I finally listened to you. We're going to do a comparison between the Epiphone SG Standard and the Gibson SG Standard. So let's address the elephant in the room here, because I already know what the comments are going to be. It's going to be 3 of the most popular comments. Number 1 is Epiphone's way better. Epiphone's made better than Gibson. Gibson is straight trash. All of these different things. Number 2 is going to be the opposite, which is Gibson's way better. Gibson's better than Epiphone, made better. Epiphone's straight trash, and you know, whatever. And you know, like, I spend more money on guitars. And then there's going to be the very clever one of the third one here. Both suck, because it's helpful. People are douche canoes. What can I say? It's the internet. Just get used to it. So I already know it's going to be. And technically, I have a dog in this fight. See, I own this, and I rented this. So you can say or think whatever you want to think, but I really don't care. Like, I'm not going to go back and watch this and like hope this one destroys this one or whatever. Truth is, both of these guitars have a bit of mojo to them. And of course, as always, for comparisons, especially on guitars, watching these videos online, I like to do it to kind of, give a bit of a different perspective on, different guitars and stuff like that. But don't let a bozo like me tell you what guitar to buy. My opinion means absolutely squat compared to your opinion if you're the one that's going to be buying the guitar. Play them for yourself. Find them, track them down, play them for yourself. See which one of these bond with you, and see which one, is a better fit for you. Whether it be like, more money or less money. Who really cares as long as you really like the guitar? But man, I am done talking. I've got 5 sound samples today in 5 different tunings. Of course, as always, we start off with clean and all of the different pickup positions, and then we end on full-on metal. Alright, so as these two guitar headstocks cover my nips, and we've heard the 5 different sound samples with 5 different tunings, let's go ahead and compare both of these guitars, you know, like specs wise. So very quickly, this is the Gibson, this is the Epiphone. They look fantastic, by the way, and it is hard to tell a lot of times when you're just looking at the body, even though this is a slightly different color than this one. But both of these have carved mahogany bodies, even though the horns on the Epiphone are slightly wider than the ones that are on the Gibson. They also have mahogany necks, trapezoid inlays, and the inlaid logo on the headstock. Now, the Gibson has acrylic and the Epiphone has something different. Does that matter? No. Moving on. The Gibson has a rosewood fretboard, whereas the Epiphone has a laurel fretboard. Now, I do have to say, I have played some very light and very dry and dusty laurel in my day. That's not the case here with the Epiphone. This is some really good stock of laurel, and it is at times hard to tell the difference. The neck on the Gibson is the rounded profile, so that's slightly thicker. than the 60s slim taper that you find on the Epiphone. The Epiphone has Wilkinson vintage deluxe tuners, whereas the Gibson has the Grover Rotomatic tuners. Both have Graphtec nuts. The pickups on the Gibson are the 490R and 490T, so they are slightly hotter pickups with a little more emphasis on the high end, whereas the Epiphone has the Epiphone Alnico Classic Pros, I remember that part, which, depending on your personal preference, not as hot as the 490R and 490T. There's still that emphasis I find on the top end. However, I do personally find that they're a little harsh. They're definitely not shrill, and it doesn't mean that the harshness will not work for you, but I find in certain instances I'd have to dial back the high end to avoid some different sounds. Both have the Tune-O-Matic with the stop bar. The Gibson has the aluminum Nashville, whereas the Epiphone has the Epiphone lock tone, which I'm not sure, it's probably zinc. Now, here's a big thing that I find pretty cool. The Epiphone is part of the original collection, whereas the Gibson is part of the modern collection. What does that mean? Well, here's the inside of the Epiphone. And here's the inside of the Gibson. So you'll notice that the Epiphone has CTS pots and they are hand soldered. The Gibson is PCB, so it doesn't make your guitar a computer. I know some people really do think that, but it's just cheaper to manufacture on the PCB. And you don't have to pay someone to slightly burn themselves every now and then when doing hand soldering. We all do it. So as far as, like, you know, quick specs and stuff like that, that's really what we've got. But it is at this point in the video where I would like to kind of go over my thoughts on both of these guitars. And I do want to say two things before I do so. Very quickly, I own the Gibson. I have 6 Gibson SGs. That's not a brag, that's just you do need to know that with what I'm going to say about the Epiphone. Also, the Epiphone is a great guitar, very well made. There's definitely some issues that I do want to talk about, but it looks fantastic. They look awesome, both of them look awesome. And this has, you know, I don't know if it's psychosomatic or whatever, has tricked me a little bit here and there. Because this has nitro finish, this has a polygloss finish. Every now and then, like when I'm playing it, I'm expecting to feel, you know, slight resistance sometimes that you get. You don't get any gunk off of any of the Gibson, or there's 2 of the Gibsons that I do own that have the gunk after like 2 hours of playing. But I don't feel that here, but in my head, I'm waiting for a little bit more resistance because it just looks that way, like it's gonna happen. If you're going into the store and you play both of these guitars and the Epiphone works for you, who cares about budget? Throw that away. If this speaks to you, if you're bonding with this guitar over this guitar, get this guitar. You'd be right to do so. If the opposite is the case and the Gibson speaks to you and the Epiphone doesn't, then as long as you can pay for it, get the Gibson. It makes sense, right? It works for you. You are in the right no matter which guitar you choose because you're choosing your guitar. No one else's opinion on the internet or in real life matters over yours with your personal instrument. You might gain more perspective, you might, you know, open other doors or have other doors open for you on different things that you can buy. But if you like this over this, get this. Just, it makes sense. So with that being said, let's talk about what I think about the Epiphone. Again, this is a great guitar. There's not really any QC issues really with this guitar. It still is a little mind-boggling to me, that when I look at the body, that I see the, you know, the imperial bridge on here rather than a metric bridge. That throws me off when I look at it. But there's some things that I do have to say here. So, number one, the neck. The neck on here, it's a comfortable neck to play. However, when I'm tuning with this guitar, I initially thought there was an issue with the bridge, where maybe there's some movement. The strings that were on here when I rented this were perfect. They're not like too brand new, they're not too old or anything like that. It's in that sweet spot. So even though I have like probably 30 or 40 extra sets of strings, I didn't have to, you know, change the strings. It made no sense to do so. So I wasn't able to actually, you know, see if there's any movement on the bridge. But when I'm tuning, so if I go from like E to E flat, and I'm tuning down, if I tune the G down to pitch, then I tune the D down to pitch, then I go from the A, the B, and then I go to the A. That's usually how I you know, tune my strings. I'm just used to that with, you know, like Gretches and Fender or Strats. So that's just how I do it. But normally, like, this is not a tension-based, you know what I mean, tremolo system or bridge system. So you shouldn't see much variance in the tuning. But when I'm tuning down, the strings either go flat or sharp. Most of the time it's actually sharp now. And I wasn't quite sure. Again, I thought that was the bridge. The tuners are great, by the way, on here. The Wilkinson Vintage Deluxe tuners, they're very nice. You don't have to do like half turns before it starts to grab the string or stuff like that. I think they're really good. But one thing that I've always noticed, especially because of the break angle, or the angle on the back of the headstock here, if you, and I'm using a lapel mic here, or lavalier mic, so you probably won't be able to hear it, but if you pluck the G string and lay it down on the floor, I won't lay it on the floors, but you should hear a little bit of like it should drop in pitch slightly. This one drops in pitch a lot when I do that little bit of a test. It's quite crazy. Like, it's not going completely flat, like it's not like going down 2-3 steps, but it's going down quite a bit. And there's quite a bit of movement in this neck. Like, I don't own this, but like, I can move that neck. Not crazy, but I'm feeling the movement. You don't feel that with the Gibson. You don't feel that with any of the Gibsons that I have that have the slim tapered neck. So it's something, you know, try it for yourself. You'll notice things. But I think that's what's happening with this guitar here, where it's kind of dropping it out of tune. It still holds its tune. That's not a big issue. I haven't played it for like, you know, an hour straight on playing leads yet, but you know what I mean, like playing it for 20-30 minutes, it's not, you know what I mean, like I'm sure I have to you know, do slight adjustments to the lower strings when I'm doing a lot of bending, or the higher strings when I'm doing a lot of bending, but it's nothing crazy. But again, something I really do have to note there, it could just be this guitar. It could be that you go into a music store and you see an Epiphone SG Standard and you go, Ryan's crazy. That doesn't happen. So hopefully that's the case. Hopefully it's just this one. But I'm noticing it, so I want to say it. Also, with the Epiphone, SGs. If you've owned SGs in the past, you'll know what I'm going to say here, and you'll go, I know what he's talking about. From the 12th fret to the higher register is usually a little plucky. It's nice when you're digging in. It's not a bad thing, but it feels plucky. And when I'm hitting the like lowest string on an open, you do still feel a little bit of that, like it's a slight snap, bit of a pluckiness. Not on the Epiphone here. It throws me off a little bit. It's not a bad thing. If you're you know, used to like a Les Paul over an SG, or you don't like that pluckiness, you won't get that on the Epiphone. But it's missing, and it throws me off just a little bit. In comparing the weight of both of these, both are very lightweight, but the Gibson is slightly heavier. So I don't know if that's because of the stock of the mahogany that they're using or what have you. Who knows? Variance from guitar to guitar, you know, depends on the wood itself, and you could have two Gibson SG standards that weigh a little different too. So that's, again, I'm noticing it, so I want to say it. But this is still a great guitar. I'm not knocking it when I'm saying these things. I know some people will get offended by what I just said, but it's something that I'm noticing, and I don't really care. Like I don't tell even people like that I meet that I play guitar, let alone like, you know, this is how many guitars I own and how much I spent on this and how much I spent on that, and I don't buy the under companies, I buy the, no one cares. I don't talk about that. That's not a thing to me anymore. I do have more expensive guitars now, but I'm 41, so I don't know, it makes me feel good when I play them, and I find that they're rather comfortable, and I do enjoy them over some of the other ones. But if this would have spoken to me, if I really would have bonded with this, I'm the kind of guy that would have a hard time not turning a rental into a purchase. And it's just, I'm just not bonding with it, and some of the things throw me off, but it's still got mojo, and it's still giving me inspiration. So I don't care which one you prefer. I never did. If you like the guitar that you own, I'm very happy for you. I don't fault anybody, whether they spent more money or less money or whatever. But like, if you prefer one over the other and you want to leave the whole like, oh, this is horrible because of blah 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 blah, I like to spend more money, I like to spend less money, whatever, I really don't care about that. I really more prefer to see that people are, you know, bonding with their instrument and gaining inspiration from it. So that's really all I gotta say, because this video right now is going to bug me when I edit it. So I say good day.